Our next presenter is Taqdir Bhandal. She is also a coroner. And Taqdir is a feminist, ministerial health activist, and PhD candidate at UBC Social Justice Institute. She volunteers with the Vancouver Women's Health Collective. She aims to live a career and lifestyle that balances research, teaching, creative writing, organizational skills, cooking and eating, sustainability, and community involvement. That's a lot.
So, my name is Taqdir Bhandal in Punjabi, Taqdir Bhandal in Canadian English. I'm a PhD student candidate at UBC. I'm also an arrivant on Coast Salish territory, and I want to say Haichka Osiam to my elders from Musqueam Small Mission Swaylatooth, who have granted me permission to be on these lands. I'm going to be talking about periods and menstruation, and also I just want to, in my presentation, take a mirror to ourselves as well. What we've talked about so far, and thank you to everyone who's presented and shared, has been very intense, to say the least. So we've talked a lot about violence and a lot of big T and little t traumas that are experienced in South Asian diaspora and community. So just recognizing that, and when we are talking about these issues, while they're important, to also maybe recognize that some people get triggered, and then also to maybe share some positives as well, just to like help raise vibrations. But I'm already over time, and it's in 30 seconds, so I'll talk about me. So as I mentioned, my name is Taqdir. My ancestors are from the Punjab region of modern-day India and Pakistan. Mere purvaj Dakshini Asia to Stolo Darya de Kundite Aisi. My ancestors came to the shores of the Stolo River Delta, well, many years ago now. I'm Sikh Punjabi. I practice Sikhi, so they arrived in the 1800s. My parents came in the 80s. The first image you see there is of City Hall. So last year I ran for City Council in Vancouver, and I was hoping to be the first South Asian woman ever elected to City Council in the city of Vancouver. Didn't happen, but almost got there, so keep your eyes out for 2022. I have a photo of food, so I want to extend my gratitude to the plants, animals, bacteria, fungi, the cosmos, the land, the water, who we just ate, and also who give us life every single day. I'm a researcher and a nerd, so research fits well with that. And I'm a menstrual health activist, and I draw on Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown for this presentation, and for my framework in general, drawing on her idea and other people's ideas of radical love. And I brought up the question of anti-Blackness because so much of the scholarship and writing and activism that I draw on are from strong Black women who wrote in English in the US and started the movement of women of color academia in the settler colonial nation states of North America. Just me in a nutshell. I started a small business 2 months ago called I'm With Periods to get out of a financially coercive relationship myself. And it starts with my own journey of coming off hormonal birth control 2 years ago, and I was on it for 7 years, and it really affected my mood and it affected my libido, and I realized I did a degree in biology. There's another biology person over here, and so we do degrees in biology, and we talked about menstruation and periods as something that we memorized because we had to pass our exams, but not like about our own bodies and what was going on inside of us, and the fact that menstruation is fucking magical and the reason why we all exist in the world today, whether we're humans or non-human beings. And so yeah, I've just been kind of on a tirade talking about periods and cycles for the last 2 years, and I'm noticing specifically within South Asian diaspora, in my diaspora, the Sikh Punjabi community in Lower Mainland, it's still something that's taboo, or something that's just kind of there and not really talked about that much. Those are kind of the two extremes. I was once told that by somebody that they've never met anyone who loved periods before, so I take that very, very seriously. So that's my handle. Later, when you all take a break and are on your phones and go, just hands up if anybody has Instagram. Put your hands up, nice and proud, we're all gonna go on it later. So go on Instagram and check out my handle, I'm with periods. Free information about menstrual health from an intersectional perspective, featuring women of color and then specifically focusing on South Asian women. I want to talk about menstruation in Sikhi in particular. A lot of folks have brought up the idea of interpretation of religious scriptures. So I consider myself a practicing Sikh, and I take that very seriously in that I like to relate my politics to it as well. Because for those of you who don't know or learned a while ago, Sikhism started in 1699. Vaisakhi's coming up, well, Vancouver Vaisakhi's coming up in a week. So we're going to be celebrating that anniversary. And it came up because there were Punjab, modern day Punjab is in between the settler states of India and Pakistan. And at the time, 1699, there was a very patriarchal, conservative interpretations of the religious texts of Hinduism and of Islam. Of course, we know there are, they are the scriptures of the people, and we all have our interpretations of it. I take a radical feminist intersectional interpretation to Sikhi, and that's my ownership and my ability to do so. But anyway, so at this time, Sikhi was born out of frustration with the patriarchy, and so it's a very, in the scriptures, it really talks about gender equity and celebrates Mahabharati, or menstruation, as something beautiful. We recognize the crimson flow as a visual celebration of the life-giving power of blood shed by menstruators. How beautiful, right? So that's what I'm trying to bring back in line with periods in my research work. That I love the images as well of just saying like, fuck you, I'm bleeding. I'm in my PMS stage right now, so I'm super, super pissy, and I own that, and that's not something to be ashamed of. Menstruation is beautiful. Not just periods and bleeding, but I talk about the 4 seasons of the cycle. Periods being winter, we have spring, which is pre-ovulation, flowers are blooming, we have ovulation, which is summer. Has anyone experienced egg whites coming out of their vagina? We have, not your underwear, cervical mucus, discharge, all of these things that these are all words that doctors use. We can use whatever words we want for it. It's beautiful. Cervical fluid, ovulation happens at that time, and then we go into pre-menstruation, pre-bleeding, which is autumn, like letting things rot, let them fall away, taking up more space, and then back to winter. So this is how I talk about periods and menstruation. We talked about going back to our ancestral roots, and for me, my ancestors were farmers, so we need farmers to exist and be humans, basically. So for me, the seasons and farming and thinking about it in that way, like sowing the seeds, setting intentions around it, and not just seeing it as something that's biological is really important. And what I want to share with you all, there's amazing stigma being broken down around menstruation today. I do client work as well. I have clients that I work with, and then for the last 2 years I've been facilitating workshops on menstrual health that are free, and they're at the Vancouver Women's Health Collective. Shameless plug there, check them out. And yet still every single time when folks come, there's so much misinformation and lack of knowledge around what the menstrual cycle is, what cervical fluid is, what ovulation is, what a cervix is. Those are like the physical aspects, and then let alone like the wisdom that comes from menstruation, the emotional wisdom, the spiritual wisdom the mental health, the way that cycles represent flow, rather than a lot of folks have talked about toxic masculinity, which I think links to capitalism and the drive for like constant productive growth. Like if we think about how economies are talked about, like anyone says recession and it's like, oh shit. Whereas periods are a recession. It's a time for the body to stop, detox, reset, before it goes into the next phases. So for me, menstrual cycles also embody the divine feminine and how we can bring this perspective of reproduction, like cyclical work, self-care, love, compassion, putting our bodies first before some of the mental analytic work of research, which is so important but can be very, very draining. All that to say that things are changing, common stigmas are being broken down. So just this year, so I'm naming 2019 the year of menstrual health. I'm calling it, it's only April, but it's happening. In January, 5 million menstruators across South Asia formed a human wall. It was 300 kilometers long, raising their fists in the air, saying that we will not be discriminated against because we bleed and we produce life. And patriarchal, conservative, nationalist, anti-choice folks are saying you're not allowed to practice your spirituality, you're not allowed to touch spiritual objects, and all these just like very not okay ways of relating and being in the world are happening, and so they protested, and that was amazing, and that was just in January, and I felt the love and the vibration. So I want to share that story with you. And the second exciting news literally just happened perfect this week, which is the oldest Gurdwara Sikh temple in the UK. It's in Shepherd's Bush. I looked it up on Google. It released a period policy. So earlier I mentioned Sikhi and how in Sikh scriptures menstruation is seen as the life-giving process, and there's a recognition that like the Khalsa and the collective, not just of Sikh people, but the entire earth and cosmos exists because of hormonal changes, emotional changes, parenting, blood, etc. So all that to say that the scripture does not discriminate. However, again, because of larger structural processes like patriarchy and conservatism and polarization and nationalism, there has been a push onto the way that Sikhism is practiced in the Gurdwaras to represent those toxic masculinities, so to speak. And not just putting it on men. I believe that everyone has the spectrum of masculine and feminine inside of us, and we negotiate that role every single day. So toxic masculinity has perpetuated Gurdwara culture, and therefore, even though it's not written in the Guru Granth Sahib, in practice, people will prevent menstruators from touching the Granth Sahib, from praying, from doing serving langar to making langar, so making food, and that's not okay because that's not what is written in Sikhi. If you're going to be a Gurdwara, practice the scripture, my humble opinion. So this amazing Gurdwara has released a period policy. So they're going to provide free menstrual products in their Gurdwara. They're going to do free workshops for people around, and then they're also going to do public awareness education to end the stigma. So round of applause and snaps for all these people doing the work. Yay! And you all so I just, I'll skip that. And in my last 1 minute, I just want to do a quick meditation and take up space in this colonial institution. We're all going to do Nadi Shodham Pranayama. If you don't know what that is, it's alternate nostril breathing, and this is just to bring our vibration together. If folks are feeling triggered from the last presentations, just to like ground. So 3 fingers, pointer finger on your third eye, thumb on one nostril, and middle finger saying fuck you to the patriarchy, capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, ableism, all the isms. And let's just ground here for a second. What you're going to do at your own pace is breathe in through one nostril, close it, and breathe out the next. Breathe in. And out. And in. And out. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can come back into your room. And so that's my presentation, taking up space in the colonial institution, talking about periods. Thank you for being you and for listening. Check me out at imwithperiods.com and at imwithperiods. The digital world seems to not be happy with us today, so we'll also give it some positive vibrations. I hope your presentation goes without any tech glitches. So thanks, everyone.